Are we good? All right. Hello, and we're back on Talking About It Live here from the NEEP Collective for our mental health fair. So we're here for the second part of our podcast, and today's second guest is proof that purpose can come from pain, that music can be medicine. Roger, I'm gonna butcher your last name, and I apologize. Roger Arquines? Arquines?
Yeah,
Oh,
Argenis or
sorry.
yeah, it's right to either way. It's fine.
I practiced all day. I probably shouldn't have. But he's a Grammy Award winning producer, musician, and mentor from El Paso who has made it his mission to build platforms for local artists. And let's welcome Roger. I know you guys gave us a round of applause, but thank you, Roger, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I kind of did a little bit of a deep dive on you
Okay.
because I knew who you were, right?
Okay.
Like in El Paso, there's not a lot of Grammy winners. So when there's news coming out, and actually, fun fact, when you were first starting your Soundstage 9,
Yeah.
I had reached out because my kids were homeschooled or are
Okay.
homeschooled.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so I was asking about, like private lessons or like private classes. And this was when you were barely starting. So
Okay.
like to see where you guys have come, all of the things, super cool. And so thank you for doing that because I know it's important. But I guess let's start. I'll move back. Sorry. I guess let's start with yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for first of all, thank you for doing this. To Jess, to NEEP, the El Paso Music Foundation, for just bringing light and making and having these platforms to be able to speak about these things. Mental health, I feel, is very important. I feel that at some point, we. I'm glad that there's a name to it now. I'm glad that there's like an actual like that we know what's happening. Like when I was growing up. So I've been dealing with depression and anxiety since I was 7 years old, and I really didn't know what was happening. I really didn't know why I felt the way I felt. I always thought that there was something wrong with me. Until much later, I realized that okay, oh, there's a it's called anxiety and it's called anorexia and all these things, right? So, thank you guys for doing this, and thank you for talking about it. That's really cool. Yeah. So, but thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thanks. So Roger, I was I did a deep dive, but of course I wasn't aware about your struggles,
Yeah.
right? So like I listened to your album.
Okay.
I was trying to really just kind of get into it. I listen to all 90s and 80s music, so like Jazz and the Pie Sisters, or like I'm starting to now listen to like new stuff. And
Okay.
let's start with the title of the Happy Sad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because that feeling is so relatable. I mean, I imagine that it's different from when you made the title, but like right now, I'm happy and sad because I'm happy I'm here and doing this, but I'm also sad that I'm kind of struggling physically from
Yeah.
it. So, what inspired you to name the album that and really just lean into the emotional dualities? Because I feel like duality is a lot with these mental health issues, right? So, what was that?
So I use the platform of music to write this album. I titled it Happy Sad because at the time I decided to just, I guess, start writing. I felt there was a lot of emotions. There was a lot of things that I hadn't really dealt with because as a business owner, as a leader, you're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to lead the pack, and be strong and be fearless. And, so a lot of times I don't get to tap into my feelings. I don't get to tap into like being able to, feel things. And, I just kind of have to go to war and go out there and then just be as strong as I can. So obviously everything that happens, all the breakdowns and all the freakouts or whatever, like whenever I freak out and I'm like having a hard time, it's all behind closed doors, right? And I'll share a little bit about what I still do because none of this really goes away. You just learn how to navigate it better. You learn how to, I love Dr. Jones touched on a lot of things where there's a lot of tools that help you get through it. And the most important thing I feel is that once you're aware of what's happening, what triggers you, then it's a lot easier to kind of just not move past it, but just still move forward, even dealing with those things. So when I was making this album, Happy Sad, it was just like, it was. I realized that a lot of time I'm happy, like I'm happy with life, and I'm grateful with being able to wake up in the mornings and just be alive. And but then sadness sometimes creeps in. Just I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why I feel the way I do sometimes. And so I was like, hey, you know what? I have a lot to say in this album. I'm really just I'm just gonna call it Happy Sad because that's how I feel most of the time.
I love it. And I love the title because it can mean both things, right? And I think always that two things can be true and nothing more than happy and sad. And you touched on it a little bit, but the great thing is that when you're healing, you start to learn, like you said, like, so if your heart rate goes up or whatever it is, and you start to panic, one thing is that it's the adrenaline going through your body, and it's the exact same feeling if you're happy about something or if you're like going on a roller coaster. It's just that our brains are processing it in a different type of way. And so you mentioned also you had anxiety and stuff like that since you were 7. I was 6 from like the first time I can actually remember like causing trouble so that the teacher can come and talk to me, right? Like, so I wasn't by myself. And so I feel like you said it perfectly. Even though we're in it, you can still push forward. And it's all about being comfortable in the discomfort and finding what works for you. So I wanted to ask, was there a specific moment or chapter, you kind of hit a little bit on it, but where the music became the healing for the mental health? Like, was it you going to therapy and then you kind of started journaling, or what was that process for you?
There was 2 points. So I've been anorexic twice in my life. I was anorexic at age 16, and then again at 22. And the time when it happened at 22, it was a lot harder because I had a son. I already had my first child, and I was pursuing music. I was out on tour. I was trying to I was pursuing music, and I remember that the second time it was just since I was older, I was, I guess, more aware that something was wrong with me, and so I remember that the thing is, once you start with like anxiety, everything, I don't know if somebody mentioned it up here, but how um, it's the anxiety, and then it marries the depression, and then you also have the and now you have anorexia, and because when you're anorexic, you're not eating, right? So you're not ever thinking logically because you're not eating, you're not sleeping, and so then that whole thing snowballs into this crazy thing. So I remember being 22, and I remember having moments where I was just like, where I would wake up literally, and I would be like, man, this sucks. Like it sucks that I get to wake up and live another day, because like this is really tough, and I just didn't know what was happening, what was going on. But my uncle is a doctor, and so he ended up like somehow sitting me down and kind of addressing my anorexia and making me eat. Because then I also became like, I was like a hypochondriac. I was also like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And like, I don't want to like get sick if I eat and all this stuff. It was crazy because you're like, you don't think rationally at this point because you're not eating, you're not sleeping, and all these things, right? So I remember he made me sit down. He had my aunt pour me a bowl of cereal, and I was freaking out. I was like, hey, can I check out the expiration date? Can I go? You know what I mean? It was just like, he was like, no, dude, just eat. And so at the end of my meal, like he was checking, well, as I was eating, he was like just making sure, reassuring me, that I was gonna be okay. And he'd tell me like, hey, it's okay, you're good. And at the end of this meal, he gave me a pill, right? So he gives me a pill, and he's like, okay, so take this pill, and every time you have a meal, right after, take the pill, and you're gonna be just fine. You're not gonna get sick. You're gonna be good. Da, 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 da. And I was like, all right, cool. And I took it, and I was like, yeah, I'm good, right? So the next day, I had a job. I went to work with my boss, and he took me out to eat. And for the first time, I was able to sit down and have a meal, and I popped the pill right after, and I was like, yes, right. And so like a couple weeks later, I think it was like a month later, I was running out of pills, and I reached out to my uncle and I was like, hey man, I'm running out of pills, and like, you know, I've been eating, it's been good, it works great, I feel good, I need more. And he was like, dude, like those pills don't do anything, you know what I mean, like you're
Like
good,
sugar
you know.
pill.
Yeah, so yeah, it was a sugar pill, and so that was the first time that I was like, so he saved my life that one time because of anorexia, but then later on, in 2021, actually after the pandemic, I already had soundstage, I had already, you know, been building and doing things, you know, I was already really active in the community, doing a lot of stuff, and mentoring a lot of people and things like that. But after the pandemic, I got really bad anxiety, and even though I was already aware of like, you know, just different things like exercise, like breathing exercises, different things, how to manage it, how to control my mind. Because at this point, I thought I had it figured out, and I was like, nah, like I got this, you know. But somehow after the pandemic, I guess because of all the stress and all the all the news and everything that was going on, I ended up like becoming or having really bad anxiety, but like nagging anxiety, where I was like, I would wake up again. Oh my god, this sucks. Like, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? And it was even more alarming for me because I was already supposed to have it together. I was already supposed to know how to handle this, how to navigate it, how to breathe, take the breathing exercises, how to manage like the, because you start freaking out. You know, I would go when I lived in Dallas, and even here, I would go to the hospital almost daily, to the emergency room, because I thought I was dying. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And all these things are like, at some point you realize that it's not normal, and then you just try to figure out what's wrong with you, and then you realize that, you know, that no, well, it's anxiety and there's all these other things, right? So I ended up going to therapy, I guess. Long story short, I ended up going to therapy, and I found the right therapist, like the person that worked for me. And you know, I remember the first time I went, I was like, man, this guy's young. He looks young. He's like soft spoken. I was like, I don't know, like I don't know what this guy's gonna like teach me or show me, you know, because you know, in my head, I was like, dude, this is too intense.
Yeah.
I need somebody that can help me, right? So it was crazy because he just, at some point, I just found myself talking like an hour later, right? And then he just like starts putting everything, like he literally grabbed everything that I said and put it like in order. And he was just like, have you noticed that there's this pattern that every time there's like a big life event, this happens to you? You freak out, you know? And then I was like, and then he was like, this time when you're firstborn, and this other time, and this other, and I was like, oh yeah, and yeah, it blew my mind. And so from there on, I was like, okay, this is a guy, this is it. And so I just went to therapy weekly for, I don't know, I think it was like 2 3 months. Like every Monday, I was there for like 2 hours, and until one day, because every day, every time I would go, there was always some sort of like ache or pain, and like, oh, I have this thing, and I hope it's not like cancer or something. You know what I mean? Like, and then you start Googling, and then the next week it's like something else. And then, you know what I mean? And then so we started attacking it, or kind of just being aware of things, and he started kind of just being logical and having me thinking logically. And that was that. One day, just like I showed up and I was like, you know what? I don't think I feel anything. I think my body's okay. I think I'm good. And he was like, you're good, man. You know? So that was that. That was the second time. And he saved my life the second time, you know? And everything changed after that, because being aware of all these things really does change your life, and really does change the game, because now you really understand like the root of it. And that's when I found out that it all started when I was 7 years old. I had my first panic attack at like 7 years old or 8 years old,
Yeah.
something like that, you know? But that's
But
what
you're
happened.
able to name it, right? And
Yeah.
this is something that I'm kind of in the middle of in my healing journey. And you know, when I was a kid, they had counselors in school and stuff, and so they would have me in the counselor's office all the time because I was troubled or whatever it was. And so like when I started getting older, 10, 11, 12, my dad would send me to counselors and stuff like that. I already knew what to say, to let them say like, nah, she's good. So for me, finding the right therapist, and it's okay, guys, if you are going through the notions and you're like, oh, I want to start therapy, but I don't know where to start. And it's okay that if you start with somebody and you don't feel a vibe, that's okay to move on to somebody else.
Mhm.
The thing is, it's just like when you're letting people into your inner circle, right? You want somebody that you're going to feel understands you and listens to you. It took me forever to find somebody, and I finally have a therapist and person who, just like what you said, she didn't force me to do things. She didn't start the conversation in a way where it made me feel like blah 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 blah. She let me kind of start, and then she would just ask the right, like, it's just asking the right questions, you know.
Mhm.
And so when you're able to unpack some of these things, it's crazy that we get so thrown in as grown-ups. I'm 44, right? So you get thrown into life and you get thrown into everything, and you're just moving, and you one day just are like, what the I'm gonna say a bad word, but like, what the fuck, you know, like those moments where you're just like, what the hell. And finding the right therapist where you can where she can unpack those things for me, like you said, he organized everything and he did it. It's kind of like Chat GPT.
Yeah.
So when you're going through your therapist, they're asking you specific questions, and Grizz did an excellent job on a reel where he explains and says this: don't give up on your therapist. Don't leave after the first meeting, because they're just trying to get information. They're just trying to get all of these things to make a plan for you. And I think that it's very important that if you don't feel comfortable, it's okay to say, I'm not comfortable. And that's in any situation. That's letting people in with boundaries. You know, a lot of on my show, we talk about boundaries, setting boundaries, building your confidence, because I feel like you're a Grammy winner, you had your business, you had all of these things. Same with me. I was a business owner. I wouldn't say so successful, but I was a business owner. I was doing all of these things, and you just still feel stuck. And you're trying to not break down, and you're trying to keep everything together. And our bodies just kind of like turn on us. And I think it's hilarious. You're probably the first person I it's okay to find comedy in our struggles when
Yeah.
you get to a certain point, because it's one of those things, if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah.
Right. But that you were saying you used to go to the hospital. I used to go to the hospital all the time. We live right down the street from one. It gets to a point where like they would just be like, they would shoot me up with stuff, make me sleepy enough to go home so I can actually sleep.
Yeah.
You also mentioned something that was very interesting to me about the anorexia. I stopped eating as well. Everybody was like, girl, you lost so much weight. You look so good. And I'm like, yeah, it's anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And they would just like look at me, and I'm like, no, seriously, like I stopped eating. I
Yeah.
would get scared of eating certain foods because I
Yeah.
would think, what if I have an allergic reaction to it? I love restaurants and stuff like that. I won't eat out. So that's very interesting to me that it is all kind of connected. And
Yeah.
you're the first person that I hear speak about that. And one, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, because
okay.
it's scary.
Yeah.
But you coming on here and speaking about that, you just taught me something, and somebody listening might have, you know, get something from you from that. And I appreciate you opening up and talking about your story, because it's so important. And I know that we're limited on time here, so
Yeah.
we're just kind of
course.
scratching the surface.
Yeah, for
But I
sure.
for sure would like to have a longer, deeper conversation, because it's just so funny. Like when you're going through things, you always think that you're alone, and you always think nobody really understands, because everybody's healing journey is different. Everybody's baggage is different. But then you make a connection, and Amber Banda put it really pretty. She's like, we're connected by trauma.
Mhm.
And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's a sad thing, but it's also, it goes with your happy sad, right? Like it's a beautiful thing. And I know we're almost running out of time, but I wanted to ask, um, what advice would you give somebody who is out there? They may be feeling stuck, discouraged, or like they've hit rock bottom. What advice would you give them? Just a piece of advice.
I would say to, just to keep going. And I know it's hard and I know it's cliche, but um one thing that I would also, just pay attention to is like, so as artists, we're very similar. We're pretty much the, we feel the same way. Like we go through a lot of the same struggles. I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I think I think I'm pretty ADHD too. You know what I mean? It's just, but I use it to my advantage. Like I think I've been going through this for so long that I've learned to manage things. I've learned to do what works for me. Like, I know that everybody up here keeps saying that, but it's true. So I'll share a little bit of, what I do, just in my processes, and just so that you guys also know that it doesn't matter what in what place you are in your journey. Like we all have struggles, and we all, I feel like sometimes at this, especially right now, we lack compassion too. We don't know what other people are feeling or going through. And um, Jamal was talking about the cockroach. Sometimes we're like too focused, or we think people are thinking about us and judging us, and people are just trying to like survive and just get through it through the day. You know what I'm saying? So I feel that it's important to kind of just figure out what works for you. What works for me with all this, like the ADHD, right? So I'll be like, I always want to take on the world, and I want to make an impact, and I'm always trying to think of the next crazy thing to do, the next biggest thing to do. And then and that's, I guess, when I'm feeling very brave, right, and very strong. And then at some point I'll be like, oh my god, like why do I do that? Like why did I, like this is like there's days where I just want to like crawl like under my bed and just, or in my closet, and just be there, because I'm afraid of like the world, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like I have to, at that point when that happens, I take a day or two. It's also turned into a whole week where I literally don't do anything. I literally lock myself in my room, and all I do is just binge watch something, or I just get my mind off whatever is going on, and I disconnect. And when I do that, it helps me get my strength back, and it helps me go out into the world and like, okay, let me face all the stuff that I'm supposed to go do now, because I'm crazy like that. But still, it's just, that's what works for me. So I guess figure out what works for you, um, and reach out. Reach out to people. Especially people that are navigating through it, but also moving forward, because all of this is can be very crippling. And as artists, we dealing with this, we also stop releasing. We don't release music. We don't do a lot of the plan, or we don't move forward. And I came to realize, because I get to mentor a lot of artists, that I started finding like a very common thing. And I realized that even if we had all the resources, even if we had all the connections, all the money or whatever, if our mental health is not there, if we're not ready to go take on the world and go out there and do these things, like we're like, even if you have everything else, like you're not gonna go out and do it, because you don't have the most important thing, which is your mental health. You gotta be like mentally strong, because this industry and just life in general is hard sometimes. You get hit, you get punched in the face a lot, and especially in this industry, and you have to be mentally strong, to be able to move forward. So find a way to still, even dealing with all of these things, still keep moving forward, even if it's just one foot in front of the other. That's what I would recommend.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I think, you know, it's crazy because we're focusing on musicians and artists, and I am not a musician. I mean, I played piano and like sax when I was a kid, but hearing you guys speak, and I always get so in awe of you guys, because you're coming up here and you're singing on stage, you're writing songs, your vulnerability that you put out on the stage for everybody to see. I can 1000% see where artists struggle with depression, are because you're putting your whole story out for people. Like I just got chills thinking about you guys. And that I have so much empathy for that, because it's beautiful that you guys share your music with us in this healing place, or you use it to heal. Um, so thank you for that. Again, we're kind of short on time, so I don't want to
Yeah.
take up too
No.
much time. But Roger, what I did want to ask is right now, how are you in your mental health journey? Are you kind of in between? Are you in one of those I feel like it's a peaks and valleys type of thing, right?
Yeah, I feel that at least in my line of work, or just having the role that I get to play,
Mhm.
I live under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, like daily, and it's something that I've learned to deal with. I feel like I've grown more tolerant of these things. So my mental health, I guess, like I said, I kind of found a pattern and cycle, like stuff that works for me. So I'll take on a lot, and I know that it's like counterproductive because it's kind of like I go really hard and then I just take take time off and then I go really hard. You know what I mean? But I feel like I'm better just because I'm aware of what is going on with me, like what triggers it, what sets it off, and so that helps me to kind of to just be proactive about it, and also just listen to my body. But I'm good. I'm okay. Like I said, I'm just always under a lot of pressure and stress. But it's like I wouldn't know what to do without it either. So
It's
it's
like a
weird.
superpower, right? It's one of
Yeah.
these things that we're able to use and harness, and we're hyper focused on things, we're hyper driven on things, and living in survival mode will do that to you. But again, thank you so much, Roger, for sharing your story a little bit with us, and I look forward to having a longer conversation where we're able to kind of dive in a little bit. And thank you all for having us. Again, it's okay to not be okay, but I like to say, I want to upgrade that to say, put a name on what you're not okay. I'm not okay because I am feeling unseen. I am feeling underappreciated. And when you start to be able to put a name to it, it helps you to get some clarification and start to organize things in your brain. Also, I will say writing things down is important, and just taking those first steps. Again, we will have resources on our social media pages. So thank you all for having us today. If you are not sure if you need help, maybe just kind of you can DM us if you need resources, anything like that. But thank you all for helping, or for tuning in, and for coming out here to support these wonderful musicians. And all of you have had such amazing messages in your songs, in your music, and I am so thankful, Jez, that you considered me to do this, because, again, I am in the healing stages. So thank you all for being a part of it. And don't stop talking about the things that are uncomfortable, because that's the only way that we'll get comfortable with them. So thank you all.
Thank you guys.